Human trafficking. Human trafficking is illegally transporting people from one area to another, typically for the purpose of forced labor or sexual exploitation. There are many ways that human trafficking affects someone psychologically, such as PTSD, anxiety, depression, panic disorders, substance abuse, Stockholm syndrome, and suicidal thoughts. Most of the time, the purchasers use physical violence to dominate and control their victim, and this leaves those victims physically damaged. The most common injuries from human trafficking are broken bones, burns, brain trauma, and concussions.
Human trafficking occurs all over the world to anyone, even in the United States. The United States is considered one of the top destination points for trafficking. Being isolated in poverty, having mental illnesses, and childhood abuse can make you a target for traffickers. Traffickers violate the victim's right to liberty and security, as well as the right to freedom, to association, and movement.
There are not many organizations for human trafficking, but a few do exist, mainly the Polaris Project, an organization dedicated to stopping human trafficking. There are a few more, but none are more successful as the Polaris Project.
The United States authorized the Trafficking Victims Prevention Act in 2000 as the first law addressing sex trafficking and labor trafficking. They focused on the prevention and protection for survivors of trafficking, as well as the prosecution of traffickers. These have been reauthorized of TVPA, and each reauthorized have positive changes.
In India, more than 200,000 children are trafficked each year. There is no laws against human trafficking, but there is a government-sponsored anti-trafficking unit which are supposed to investigate human trafficking cases.
In Cambodia, the law on suppression of human trafficking and sexual exploitation is supposed to curb human trafficking.
Not all trafficking victims are used for sexual exploitation. This is Tabby Karasera's story. Kiasera was a student at Indian University. A former IU student had coerced her into working as a domestic servant for a year and 6 months. She took care of the children, did laundry, ran errands, cooked meals, and bought groceries, all without pay. Kiasera's story starts like most. She was promised a job at a daycare center and attending school in St. Louis. Her neighbor had bought her flight. It wasn't until she was above the Atlantic that she noticed her destination was in Indianapolis, not St. Louis. The contact she was given had said her sponsor family was on vacation there and was supposed to meet them there, so she went on her way. The woman that was meeting Kiasera showed up, introducing her to her 2 kids, and took her documents to enroll her in class, or that's what she told Kiasera. Later on, the woman said her job was to take care of the kids and get them ready for school. That's when Kiasera found out she wasn't going to school. She was their nanny. Kiasera was often denied food and medicine, and sometimes was locked in a room for punishment. Kiasera ended up getting a cyst, and one night, after repeatedly asking to go to the doctors, it got so bad she stood up to the student, telling her that Kiasera had talked to a lawyer and that she knew what was happening was wrong. She threatened to call the police if she wasn't given a passport. Later that night at the doctor's, passport in hand, Kiasera knew that the terror was over. She was free.
Every single minute, 2 or more children are forced into slavery. Estimated 27 million victims enslaved in the world today, and 14 to 17,000 women and children are trafficked into the country each year. The U.S. Department of State estimates that about 600 to 800,000 women and children are trafficked across national borders annually. Most traffickers target girls aged 12 to 14 and who have a history of sexual abuse. In West Michigan alone, according to a census in 2010, an estimated 2,739 out of a population of 1,321,557 were victims of human trafficking.
Help prevent human trafficking. Watch for someone with poor mental health or abnormal behavior, poor physical health, lack of control, someone that looks lost or confused.